Hello there guys, Adam here as per usual. Thanks for keep checking out the vids. I've been promising this for absolutely ages, and I was going to do an absolutely full massive mega sort of rig to a rig rundown. I've decided actually to break it up into little parts, so I'm going to show kind of the live rig, if you like, the amps, the pedals, the racks, etc. in this video, talk a bit about it, explain them. Then in a few later videos I'm going to do kind of the studio setup in more depth, also talk about the guitars in more depth, otherwise the video would go on for absolutely ages. What I'm also going to do as well is then have another video where I'm actually playing through all the sounds and stuff like that. So yeah, excellent, let's get to it. The new rig is finally complete, or as complete as it's ever going to be. Okay, so it starts at guitar and then into this iron tone interface, simple kind of passive interface, which is pedal board in and out, and MIDI there as well, also in and out. First pedal in the chain is this Boss TU3 chromatic tuner. Does the job absolutely perfectly, variety of settings on there. You guys probably already know about this. Underneath as well, something that's quite new, the first time I've used it on my board, is a Diago pedal riser, just to rise the pedals above there. When I originally had designed this board, it was considerably more packed. There was about 8 or 9 pedals on here. Now I'm only using a few. The reason being is I'm getting the majority now of sounds I want from the rack. And I had literally sort of like 5 or 6 dirt pedals all lined up in a row, and it was just too much. It was unnecessary, you know, so I slimmed it right back to just kind of what I call the bare essentials, or at least the sounds that I use most often, have most fun with. Into the Cry Baby War with the Iron Tone mods. Check out irontone.co.uk for more information on that. Into the Bob Burt Clean Boost, still a staple on the board. As you can see, it's turned on. It's pretty much permanently on. I would say 95% of the time this is on. It's always on pedal, even on the clean channel, just to give a little bit of extra kind of presence, beef the whole signal up a little bit further. Sounds perfect, does the job excellently. Always on pedal for me. Then we've got the Iron Tone cranked combo. This is kind of the crank combo and the exotic BBMB are kind of the revolving doors of overdrives, if you like. Got my Iron Tone crank combo in there at the minute. Use it for a variety of things, as we'll sort of show in the actual playing video, but mainly use it as kind of like a fuzz pedal essentially. Iron Tone crank combo, love that, still very proud of those. Only ever made a couple. Then we've got the exotic BB preamp MB. I had one of these several years ago. Went to New York on holiday, bought one, brought it back, used it. For some reason sold it, and then managed to get my hands on another one about 3 or 4 months ago maybe, and still been really digging it. Hasn't come off the board. And then finally, yes, another Nady TD1 tube distortion. For those people who don't know, the TD1 is one of my all-time favourite kind of dirt pedals, and I had one and it kind of started to get a bit faulty and broke a bit, so I sold it on kind of for spares or repairs, and I've been looking for another one ever since then. I should never have sold the original one I had, and I finally found this literally about a week ago on eBay at just a tremendous price. Almost brand new. You can see it's pretty much in pristine condition. Absolutely phenomenal pedal. This is going to feature very heavily in my videos from now on. The TD1 isn't without its annoyances. It has an external power supply that plugs in via this weird looking cable, and it's right in the way. You can't put this jack over underneath it. Absolute ball ache, but worth it. Of course, all powered by the Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 2 Plus. I've had that, my god, probably 8 years, maybe longer, and it's awesome, still going strong. Final pedal is the MIDI controller, Hughes & Kettner FSM 32 Mark II, I believe. It's not a kind of fully fledged MIDI controller in a way. It's kind of like a preset selector. There's not an awful lot of MIDI power and capability in there, but it sends out basic program changes, which is all that I really need, although eventually we are definitely going to be upgrading that and then probably redoing the board again. Then back out of the interface in this rather naff cable at the moment, until I find some more of this Tech Flex to make some more. Selection of pedals and stuff under there. We'll go through those maybe another time. We come up into this interface box here, the rack interface. I was originally going to have like a rack panel along the bottom as an interface, but then as I kind of just started designing that, I thought there's not much point for what I want. Be kind of a waste of space, so we go into this rack interface. The MIDI comes out the box and goes into this MIDI splitting and MIDI buffering device here, so I can control the amp and a few of the units via MIDI as well. So we go into there, and then we go into channel 1 of the TLA 5013 TLA Audio 5013 Ivory Series equalizer, valve equalizer. And I'm actually cutting the signal coming in a little bit. It's a little bit hot. I should cut it more, but I just like a little bit of crunch from the valves. And then we've got 4 bands of EQ, parametric EQ. I'm cutting out quite a substantial amount of low end, boosting in the mid and lower high region, and then cutting out the high end. And why I do that, because then you can really shape kind of how the amp distorts the signal. Because straight from there, we're going back into the interface, and then into the front of the amp, which is of course the Hughes & Kettner trilogy, until one day I can afford the Triamp. The new Triamp 3s look awesome, don't they? Not boosting anything or cutting anything at the output volume there either. Yeah, so it really allows you to shape the signal that hits the front of the amp, and the different kind of EQ or the different spectrum that hits the front of the amp causes it to react in a completely different way. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting out a lot of the low end and some of the treble and boosting the middle, which are kind of the key frequencies for me in my guitar tone. And so the amp is focusing on really driving that mid-range and almost leaving the bass untouched and just crunching the treble slightly. Experiment at your own, you know. I tried the other night. I took the EQ out and I just played straight into the amp, and it just did not sound anywhere near as good as having these 2 channels of EQ. Amp's really getting driven hard by the mid-range, but it's not affecting the low end that much. So in the effects loop, we come back out of the amp into the interface and into channel 2 of the EQ. We bring some of that bass back, not all of it. Leave the mids sort of boosted, so leave the mids pretty much untouched, and then bring pretty much all of that treble back in as well. And so what that does, it means that you get the full kind of frequency, the full spectrum of sound again, but the low end is a lot tighter because it hasn't been distorted as much. Sometimes I find the bass control on most amps, if you turn that any higher than 1, 2, 3 at a push, it starts to get really flubby and fuzzy, and it's not what I'm about. I'm about kind of that tight low end. So doing it this way means that you get lots of that low end kind of punch and power, but it's really clear and undistorted and really kind of focal, and it sounds great. And likewise for the treble as well, just bring some of the treble in so you're not losing the presence. So this is the entire rack here, pretty small as you can see compared to some guys. Then into this Digitech valve effects. It's something that I got a couple of years ago after I had been keeping my eye on looking for one. And this is kind of my all-purpose multi-effects kind of unit, if you like. It handles all of me modulation, some of me delays, and compression as well. It's got an analog compressor built into it, so the compression's not digital. It's got an analog compressor built into it, as well as, I believe, a digital noise gate. It's also got a valve in there for kind of like a preamp and extra distortion effects. I don't use that unless I'm running direct to desk or something like that. And it's also got cab simulators and stuff in there as well. If the amp goes down, I can plug into there. I've got a couple of patches, run direct to desk, you know. Useful tool to have. A couple of different choruses, massive chorus, dual detune, which is one of my favourite sounds. We'll go through that. Some Leslie effects, compressor only, which I use on the rhythm channel, solo detune of that 80s sound, Holdsworth style delay, flanges, phases. The only thing that it doesn't really have is a tremolo, but you can kind of fake it by running the pan sound in mono. So yeah, digging that unit, awesome unit, really enjoying it. It's got reverbs and stuff in as well. Out of the valve effects, we go into the TC Electronic D2 dual delay. Another one of those units where I must have sort of lusted after this unit for a good 4 or 5 years before I found one in as good a condition and at a price that I wanted to pay. It's not the $22.90 that everybody wants, but it's definitely a good unit. It's got a lot of power and a lot of flexibility in there, but it's also a little bit kind of limited sometimes, and the MIDI implementation is a bit of a faff on in a live rig, but I'm managing and we're getting there, saving lots of sounds. It's got some very authentic kind of sounding tape delays that I've created. There's a whole load of presets and stuff in there, lots of interesting sounds. All good, all good. Then finally we go out of that into the Lexicon MPX 100. I'm not really digging this unit that much, to be honest with you. It's a multi-effects unit. It's got an absolute myriad of effects and was available reasonably cheaply when they first came out. I got it ridiculously cheap, too cheap probably. So I'm using it mainly, well, I'm using it solely just for reverbs at the end of the chain. On my clean tone, I like a big spacious reverb, but on my leads and rhythms, I have either no reverb or just a little splash of reverb. So I didn't want to pay a fortune for a unit that I'm only going to use sparingly, you know what I mean? So in all fairness, the reverbs in this unit are you know, their lexicon. They're very, very decent reverbs. I've experimented with some of the modulation and some of the delays in the unit as well, and they're pretty decent, but that ground's covered by the valve effects and the D2, definitely. This will probably be the first piece that leaves the rack and gets replaced with something else if I find either a better reverb that I really enjoy, or, you know, another multi-effects unit that's got some sounds in that can really complement the valve effects and the D2. Alright guys, thanks for watching. That's about it. Hope that helps. I'll do another video where I run through the kind of guitars. I'm waiting on getting a guitar back from the tech that I use, putting some new pickups and some new wiring configs and stuff in there for me. Then I'll do kind of studio sort of rundown and go through some of the other spare pedals I have. You'll notice from on the board, not using any of the Arion SCH1s on there. As you guys know, I absolutely adore the Arion SCH1s. Nothing sounds anything like them. Really love the pedals, but they're not without their problems. You know, they're made of plastic. I could rehouse them, depending on kind of the setup and the tone and stuff as well. The pedals running before it, the buffer in it can suck a bit of tone. Sometimes in front of the amp it tends to be okay in fairness, but in the effects loop that's really when you notice that kind of degradation. I'm going to make a little project board for the studio, kind of a rack drawer, something like that, that pulls out, and use them as well as a couple of other pedals as kind of outboard effects. So that's about it guys. I'll go through the spare pedals another video. Hope this helps and you enjoy it. Take it easy.